Sick. Um, right, little improv live on Facebook within the group. We are going live this afternoon also, so make sure that you tune in for that. But this is just a little topic that I wanted to talk about. I don't know if the title is up on the live, but it is the topic of weight loss with a horrendous relationship with food. Now, I work with so many people, and this is pretty much the type of person that I work with who has tried everything. Now, before I get into this little topic, I want to um, caveat this with a couple of things. All right, firstly, you are human and you have choice. So, with most people, I'm like, do what you want. All right, it's up to you. A lot of people may not enjoy this particular message that I'm going to deliver within this live, within this podcast. If you are listening back, if you are watching live, by the way, just please interact. If I don't get around to your questions or comments, I will respond in the thread. But in terms of this whole thing, firstly, it's up to you. Most of the people that I've helped have tried everything and they've went to sometimes further and further extremes, even to the point of like surgery, even to the point of drugs. And they've got themselves in such a muddle. Um, but in many ways, that has been the necessary path to get them on the straight and narrow. So sometimes more pain, um, more stress, more anxiety, more challenges is in fact the fuel they need in order to do a proper job of this. So in many ways, I say, listen, sometimes need to fail more before you decide to go right. Yeah, that's clearly not working. The second thing is this message is for those that really are struggling, who have a huge problem with food and their body, and a hugely toxic relationship with food. It consumes their thoughts, and it's constantly on their mind. They're constantly anxious and worried about what they can eat, what they can't eat. Um, they've tried everything, therefore, there's probably a mishmash of numerous rules going on. And if you are being if your internal algorithm, we talk about the algorithm of the internet and you feed the algorithm, if you are feeding your own brain certain bits of information, a lot of the people who come to me are just completely lost with it all because they've tried so many things, and often one thing conflicts with another. They are in this situation where they just don't know what to do. And listen, that's absolutely fine. That's okay. I made a space. This is why I exist, because I operated in the fitness and diet industry for so many years, and I just never really felt aligned with it. I'd helped people lose weight, but I didn't feel exactly fantastic when the inevitable consequence occurred of them regaining the weight, and I felt responsible. So I was like, there is just something fundamentally flawed with this entire model of helping people. So I decided to kind of go, well, I don't really want to be part of this. I want to actually genuinely help people. And in many ways, what we have to also do is redefine what success is. Now, I know so many people who want to lose weight, and I still work with these mostly women, guys too, but these ladies um, who struggle with their body image, their relationship with food. They have become disconnected with food, and they have become disconnected as a whole. Um, and it really kind of challenges me seeing what the fitness and diet industry are doing to people. And I get it, right? People are losing weight. And maybe yourself listening, you want to lose weight. You have um, emotionally ate, binge ate, yo-yo dieted yourself into a worse position. And this is the reality of the situation. We have to imagine if you fly above your timeline and you can see all of that time back. Have a look at it and look at the net result. I don't want to hear this worked the last time if you were starting it again. It's where you are right now in relation to maybe where you very first started. Because so many of the women that I work with, they look back at pictures or a time where they thought they were fat and they say to themselves, I wish I looked like that now. I thought I was too big then. And I'm just so sad because now people are just seemingly digging themselves into a deeper, deeper, deeper hole. And this is the reality of dieting. Like, if I wanted to get somebody fat, I'd diet them. That's and how crazy is that? It's like, yes, in the short term, we might see results. There might be this euphoria of going, way, the weight's coming off, fantastic, celebrate, validate. You get the compliments. But inevitably, what happens is those go away. The novelty wears off, and you are left with the restriction, the restraint, the um the infiltrating thoughts, the worry, the anxiety, the black and white perfectionism that diets usually breed, afraid to miss workouts, afraid of foods that are all around you. And usually with people, it breaks. The momentum is lost. And when that diet momentum is lost, it is so hard to recapture. And I've seen it time and time again, is people are doing it, and when they are perceived that they are successful, i.e., they are willing to ignore the internal stuff because of the external reward of that, for example, scale weight dropping, or the compliments, or the clothes fitting a little bit better. Another quick caveat is I'm not against weight loss. All right. I am against the pursuit of weight loss um, without the considerations of the other aspects of health. In fact, the detriments of other aspects of health, the almost eating disorders that it creates. And did you know eating disorders, they're the leading cause of deaths in all mental health issues. So let that sink in. There's so much shame around eating disorders. Now, typically the type of person I work with, they it's almost like they crawl out of the shadows of shame and embarrassment. It is so sad. They feel like so guilty that they don't have the willpower or discipline that everybody else around them seemingly has. And it really pisses me off um, because here I am, genuinely want to help people, but I understand that a lot of their primary goal is still, I just want to lose weight. And this is where, like, obviously, weight loss versus like healing your relationship with food. What should you do first? And so many people are like, I'll lose the weight first and then I'll worry about that. So I'm going to do my 6 week shred or my 12-week transformation program, the old school stuff. It's like, right, you're going to jump into a bunch of hit based cardio and you're going to restrict particularly carbohydrates. There's one local to me which like get you to cut water before your final weigh-in, so you're a bit dehydrated. So that really kind of like um tips the scales in the right direction. And guess what they do? It's plastered all over the social media. We did the such and such challenge. Anybody in the Northeast England will know what I'm talking about. And I lost 22 pounds in 4 weeks. I'm like, fucking hell. Sorry, again, language. This is me, by the way. I swear a little bit. Um, so again, we're above our timeline. We're looking at the big picture of it. Where are you right now? Now, there's so many people right now that are actively losing weight, and they're just not even, this isn't even on the agenda. Usually clients I'm working with 35, 40 plus, all right? You know what? They've had the euphoria of weight loss and it's been great, but then it isn't. And then there's this cycle, and eventually once that cycle has kind of went round and round 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 times, for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, eventually you start questioning yourself. Is it me? Am I broken? Can I do this? Am I capable? Why am I clearly just different to everybody else? And listen, the great thing is you are different to everybody else. You are a unique, awesome individual. And the diets that you've likely been following just haven't aligned with you here in your heart, in your soul, whatever you want to call it. All right. And I do get a little bit woo-woo with my um the the way that I work with clients because most people just think, oh, it's a food and exercise thing. And I'm like, no, it's a human thing, it's a connection thing. It's about not just food, it's your relationship with it and all of the context that food has in your life. I am a huge foodie, and most of my clients are huge foodies, but they feel like they're stuck between this rock and hard place between like enjoying food and food being the enemy. And it's like loving someone you hate. And the thing is, it's about finding that word balance. And let's look at dieting as a whole. Diets typically, and I like this to think of it like this, like pretty much 90, 95% of diets fail. And people are like, well, I'll be the 5%. And I'm like, yeah, but the 5% are still dieting. They've just, they are just white knuckling it. They may have an eating disorder. Their life may be consumed by that. And that to me just isn't freedom. They're still on a diet. They're just the 5% that manage to like stick it out. So it's like, we don't even want to be part of that crew, the dieting crew, the club. The answer to me is obvious. And again, this isn't me pushing my agenda. I said at the beginning, do what you want. It's up to you. I want you to use these podcasts, these videos, as just like a little bit of food for thought. Is like, is my pursuit of weight loss like contributing to all of the weight regain? What is it doing to me psychologically? When I say, right, I'm starting to be good, what happens to my life? What happens to the things around me? Is the pursuit of this one aspect of health conflicting with other values that I have in my life, like connection and love and relationships with those around me? Because if it doesn't align with who you are, then potentially the struggle is going to be real for the longest of time. And I know it just sounds like a little bit dour, but why do you think most people quit? Why do you think they stop? Because they don't want to do it. They don't want to diet. They don't want to restrict and restrain. And we've got to look at not just the physiological responses, but the psychological responses. I've spoken about Minnesota starvation study many a time, but these people, which the kind of which they were surprised by, people that were overlooking the study, and they were surprised just with the psychological effects that starvation had. And that's essentially what your body is preparing for mentally and emotionally, and biologically, is it sees what you're doing as a threat. And the psychological restriction alone, even because if you have a very poor relationship with food, if you've yo-yo dieted for so long, then the likelihood is that already your brain has went down the path before you've even walked it. It knows what's coming. The first diet, you don't listen because I've done it before, like when my first ever bodybuilding prep in 2013. That was new and novel and exciting. I was willing to like eat pretty much chicken, rice, broccoli, tuna. I was given a list of foods that I was allowed by just a he wasn't a coach, but a friend, a very and a really lovely guy. But I didn't know anything. Um, this was where I was introduced to macros, macronutrients, but I had a list of foods. That's what you allowed. Basically, if you think of bodybuilding foods, that was it. And it was like bland, dry, boiled, awful. And the excitement of like seeing my body change kind of outweighed the the repetitive, boring nature. And guess what? I competed, and what did I do after? I wanted to eat the things that I denied myself. And 2014 came around the year after, and I went in with a new approach, a more flexible approach. And there was still, like, obviously the biological restriction that I'd placed on myself in order to lose the body fat to compete. But my body bounced back. Wasn't There was some uncontrolled binges, as I've kind of spoken about, but that was maybe a separate podcast in that. But I had to take my body back to balance. I had to get, in order to allow my weight to come down to what I consider my happy place, I had to, in the short term, like gain weight. And the relative short term was several months. But also I had to heal like my relationship with food and my body a little bit. Because when you do bodybuilding, it's just a different kettle of fish. You take yourself through an emotional and physical kind of challenge that not many can understand unless they've been through it. Um, and I took 3 years away from like wanting to actually shift my body weight down again. And it was 2017, the last time I did like a photo shoot and got to that degree of leanness. But the great thing is, coming out of that leanness was such an easier thing because I had such a better relationship with food and myself. And I didn't, and this is a huge thing, is I recognized my worth outside of my physical being, my weight. And that's a huge thing. Your weight is not your worth. And I think a lot of people put too much stock in that. And I think also, if you are in a culture where like weight loss is hugely celebrated, when weight loss isn't achieved, then you can kind of see that as a negative and internalize that as a I'm not good enough, I can't do this. So with clients, with people who are have essentially dieted themselves into a worse place. And the only thing they associate to weight loss is pain, like eating foods that they don't want to eat, doing activities they don't enjoy. Then the inevitable thing is they're going to get sick of that. So it's this kind of like rock and a hard place of like, I hate eating a certain way and training and all of that. Like I have a toxic relationship with that, but also I hate being uncomfortable and fat or whatever. Which one do I hate the least? And I'll just go with that. For me personally, if it was a choice between the two, I would probably go for the latter two. And I know that sounds weird because like I think a lot of people just assume that um you're in the gym constantly and you're eating squeaky clean and you're perfect. And actually it's been imperfect that effect that allows long-term consistency and not like putting too much pressure on myself and being flexible with oneself that really makes this achievable and not trying to restrict or control myself because as soon as you feel controlled, that's when our human rebellion comes in because that is our right for freedom and choice. So at the beginning of this talk, I just said, you've got a choice. By all means, go to the calorie tracking, go to the fitness influencers, go to the slimming groups, do that. It's up to you. You know, if you want an alternative approach, if you've got such a shoddy relationship with food, if you're battling constantly and thinking and worrying and anxiety and don't know what to eat, how to eat, if you lost connection with your body, if you know deep down that this diet and stuff is just a waste of time, that's where you need to start exploring alternative things. Listen, it might not be working directly with me, but at least it's stimulating some thoughts for you to explore, to get out of the culture, the weight loss culture that people are part of for years, for decades. And I think like being able to look at that timeline and go, you know what, that weight loss was just temporary. And if anything, it's contributed to the emotional stuff, the biological stuff, because potentially you've lost muscle mass, you've certainly lost time. And that's the problem. Is like when people are like one of the biggest regrets the majority of the people I'm working with say is like the opportunities that they've missed. Even when they were there, they weren't there. They were there with their family, but they were so kind of like in this heightened state of anxiety because of the food, the lack of control, the inability to track, the not knowing how the food was prepared, the cleanliness of the food, the health of it all. And yeah, listen, I see you commented, Lee. I'm in flow, so I don't want to kind of lose it, but I will comment or message you after this. But yeah, if you watch back on replay or if you are watching live, I appreciate you. Um, Message me, leave a comment uh, for the algorithm, okay? Feed the algorithm on this group because it means a lot. If you enjoyed this podcast, if you listening to it at any stage, um, it's obviously here forever. So it's an opportunity for you to, I would maybe go back to it, come back to it, um, but also like start feeding your own internal algorithm with the stuff that you need to support your emotional and psychological health goals. And don't let a number on the scale be the determinant factor of whether or not you are successful, because the scales do what they do. They naturally fluctuate. Your body naturally fluctuates, and it can just take people out of all of the amazing positives that they're getting. The the enjoyment of food again. They're not binge eating. They're not emotional eating. They're not hating themselves, not beating themselves up. Bin the scales. Again, it's like we have scales in our house. I can't remember the last time I used them. They're just not there. I'm not bothered. And if I went on them, don't, you know what? Like I'm just so disconnected, and that takes time. But when we are in a diet culture, I'm not in a diet culture. I want to create like an anti-diet culture, if anything. And like this is what this group is about. It's not just teaching you to be a better, I don't know, be better at your eating disorder. Like, and that's where we kind of are. It's like a lot of the people have working with have a very unfortunate, disordered relationship with food. And this is the thing. It's like when it just you focus on the problem. Scales typically, what happens when we jump on them, when people jump on them, because I don't jump on them. But what typically people happen is that just kind of just gets rid of all of the rest of the positives. And that's what I'm saying is like people will go down desperate measures to lose the weight. They'll take the semaglutide, the weight loss drug, or even go to extremes of surgery, bariatric surgery. And sometimes these things don't work, but what they're trying to do is ultimately is control their behaviors. Um, but like when eventually those don't work, it just digs an even deeper hole, and we don't want those holes to be any deeper. So the message is, right, put the shovel down, stop digging, and focus on the next 5 years. Time's going to pass. 5 years is going to pass. Now you can spend that 5 years, all right, doing another variation of what you've always done. Doesn't matter what it's dressed up as. It doesn't matter whether it's opening up my fitness pal again. Doesn't matter whether it's going back to the slimming groups. It doesn't matter whether it's like the latest new gimmick or something that you self-impose, some sort of rules or restriction. Um, but you might spend 5 years of kind of doing this. You might spend the next 5 years, and this is what we want, is maybe spending the first however many months of that sorting out your relationship with food, making peace with food, getting connected to your body, understanding your natural appetite signals, developing more self-compassion and more self-respect. And I'm not saying love yourself, but I'm saying respect yourself, nourish yourself, honor hunger, like change the narrative. Stop thinking like a desperate dieter. Stop talking, get rid of the diet talk. It's unavoidable, but you can influence the flow of things. And I just don't even entertain it. People talk to me, and I'm so confident. And this is the difference, confidence. I'm confident. I don't give a shit. I don't care. Like, if people want to, oh, Ian, is that healthy? I'm just like, define health. Go on, do it. Nobody, nobody has a fucking clue, basically. All got this dieting agenda. What I do, what coaching really is about, what this group is about, what this podcast is about, is getting you to see the world differently from an angle that you didn't even think was possible. The reason I get coached is because I know that I'm limited by my own thoughts and belief and my perspective and perception of the world. So somebody can come into my world and go, you know what? Yep, bang. It's as simple as that. That to me, the price on that is worth potentially like you know what? It's worth all the money in the world because what it's doing is adding quality to my life. It's helping me be better. And this is often what people need. It's like, right, continue being coached versus or having therapy or having counseling or anything like that is working with your emotional brain. You probably know all of the food rules. I did, and this is a little side tangent. So I'm a precision nutrition level one certified coach, and every 2 years we're asked to redo our certification. And I just did it the other day. And I just realized how like much I've moved on from like the nuances of nutrition and all of these little things that just don't matter when people have emotional eating problems. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what information. It's not about the information. It's about perfectionism, fear of failure, procrastination. And Lee, I'm sorry to hear that, but people stay stuck for the longest of time. And if I can, through this podcast, through this group, help, help alleviate some of the pressure, help improve your relationship with food, help like improve your relationship with those around you, help as a byproduct of helping you, your friends, your family, your children, help you be more present in their life and add quality to your own and theirs, make you a better work person, a better colleague, a better everything. I've proudly helped so many people who have spent decades stuck in this problem. But there has been one major contributor to their success, which is them coming to the realization that I need help. And asking for help is not a sign of weakness. If anything, it is a super strong sign of strength. That sentence makes sense. saying, listen, this is a problem. This is a big problem. And if I continue down the same route, again, it's a 5-year question. If you keep doing what you've always done, where's that going to ultimately lead you? And I want to finish off by saying, like, and however people take this, that's okay. My primary goal with clients who have struggled with yo-yo dieting, binge emotional eating, have this hugely toxic relationship with food, isn't weight loss. Because any weight loss achieved with all of that shit foundation going on is going to ultimately lead you to where you've always been. So you may have to go a different way about it. Maybe it's not what you want to hear. And as I said at the beginning, maybe you have to do shit a few more times. The lesson will keep repeating itself until it's learned. I even know people that are so stubborn, they know I'm right, but they don't want to hear it. So they're like, I never hear from them again. It's like I've offended them. And I was just like, I've just kind of hit you in the feels and the willingness to be vulnerable, the willingness to be open, the willingness to see yourself more than a number on the scale, more than a body shape. And listen, like you heal your relationship with food, your body will just naturally settle to where it was meant to be. Okay. Like my body fat percentage is where it's meant to be. Okay. The difference between me and a lot of people is the fact that I do a huge amount of resistance training. And remember, probably the first, oh, so I'm 20 years in, maybe the first 10 was all borderline obsessive training. And like, and I had to go through that to eventually build enough intuition to learn really how easy it is. I educate myself because most people at the minute they're exercising, and again, I'm going on tangents. They're exercising out of a place of desperation, trying to burn calories. They're eating out of a place of desperation. They're trying to be good, and they just don't have a clue. It's all very reactive, not proactive. So I've learned to be very proactive. I've learned to listen to myself. I've learned to have self-compassion. I've learned to regulate my emotions. I've learned not to be a perfectionist. I have an identity of Ian Bickle. If I don't go to the gym for a week, I'm okay with that because that doesn't mean I'm not a person who doesn't go to the gym or I'm a person that doesn't go to the gym. Just haven't went that week because life's happened. I've been poorly. I've got 2 kids. I've got other responsibilities. I reframe it. That's a deload. That's a week of just letting my body heal. But mostly, I'm in the gym enjoying it, training hard. I enjoy resistance training and I enjoy training it not necessarily now in the pursuit of muscle mass, because like my ability to grow muscle just isn't what it was, and I no longer do it for that purpose, but certainly for the retention of it. But like my body fat percentage is just kind of probably I'm fine with that. And I think a lot of people have this like, well, it's okay for you, Ian. You look the way that you do. And I'm like, but that isn't my focal point. My focal point is just enjoying food, enjoying being nourished, enjoying being energized, enjoying what food gives us, um, having stable energy levels, not having a toxic relationship with food, not worrying about the intricacies, the perfect macros, the nutrient timing, not worried about not being able to work out because I know actually for example, 7 days in a week. So if you say, oh, I'm training 3 days per week, well, who invented the week? Who made that up? So you step outside of like what is kind of conventional wisdom. And when you make your own rules up, you actually can play with them. rather than sticking yourself in a little box. You can go, actually, yeah, I got the Beatles said 8 days a week, didn't they? Little Beatles reference. But you can decide how to play this game. And that's the flexibility we want to give people. And I know this started with like, should you weigh yourself? Should you prioritize weight loss over healing your relationship with food? And this is why I say there's so much nuance to be pulled out. Because you are a human and you listening are the expert of you. I may know a lot more about nutrition and all of that bullshit, intricacies and all of that, and training, but I'm not an expert on you. You are the expert of you. Lee's got a great question. Stupid question. Is there an age where you struggle more to get in shape? Like, I'd love to have defined muscles, but I keep giving up. So I mentioned it earlier, just the psychology of it all is usually the thing that gets in the way, the belief systems, the the gap in your mind between where you are now and where you want to be keeps people stuck. As I said, the 5 year you is 5 years away. All right. So you can just live in this place and be like, oh, I'm not getting anywhere. Oh, like, I'm stuck. Oh, like, I'm not doing anything. And then obviously it's 5 years later and you've been kind of in that thought versus actually, what can I do to bridge the gap? What little things can I improve on? And it might start small. And this is really what I'm working with people on. It is moving them forward, like really moving them forward. And that's what this is all about. It's about feeling the fear, seeing the fear, having all of these what if questions, the worry, the anxiety. What if it fails? What if the same thing happens again? And I'm like, that line of thinking is keeping you stuck. You're already stuck in your head. You've already failed. You've already painted that picture. So why would you bother? And for example, this group, this podcast, I don't know what's going to happen with it. Could blow up. I don't know the outcomes. But what I'm going to do is give it. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be authentically me. People may be aligned. People may be disaligned. People may switch off. People may leave the group. They may, this Ian Bickle's a dickhead. I don't like him. But some people might be, this is a breath of fresh. I need this in my life. And that's who this is for. And like the I'm not saying it's going to be easy and there's going to be frustrating times when I'm working with people, like they come to me and they're feeling deflated and defeated. And I'm like, shit, if you were all right, you wouldn't be here. If it was easy, you wouldn't be here. We need this. We need these feelings. We need these thoughts so that we can work with them. Because the feelings and thoughts and the fears are exactly those things, emotions. And it's usually the emotion that triggers the behavior. So if we manage our state, if we hear and see the feelings and the thoughts, the doubt, the worry, the anxiety, and this is what Helen's going to be on the next podcast that'll be here, but we're going live this afternoon of recording. But the next podcast that'll be on this podcast will be me and Helen talking about the brain and why it keeps us stuck in anxiety. And just think about when you're listening to these podcasts, how often's Ian talking about food? How often's he's mentioned like macros and nutrient partitioning and supplementation and blah 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 blah. Noise, 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 information, information. Go and absorb more of that shit. But it's probably driving more perfectionism, more overwhelm, more worry. The reality is, I'm here to make things easier because when you become like in control of your thoughts, your behaviors, your emotions. Like you are actually in charge. You are not outsourcing nutrition anymore. You are not following stuff because you don't trust yourself. And I trust myself. I know I can have Pizza Friday. Every night we have Pizza Friday. A couple of weeks we've had calzones, folded pizza, ex-pizza chef, foodie. So I've got to love my diet. If I don't love my diet, I don't want to do it. All right. So the flexible nature of it all, the choice that I have, I may choose to eat the same thing mostly. Why? It's my choice. Don't have to. The words have to or shoulds, not positive words. Don't want to do that shit. All right. So I trust that. I trust my appetite. You know what? I trust if I overeat, my body will signal that I'm not hungry. And I understand the ebbs and flows of it. Why? Because I have experience and I'm willing to go through those experiences. And those experiences and learning from them are huge. And as Cheryl said, this is a mindset game. And unfortunately, diet culture is so strong, hugely strong. It's so much bigger than me. And people within it, it becomes almost tribe-like. So what do? We create our own tribe, the fuck off tribe. And we develop a mindset. And what happens is we create a community that support one another, that starts looking outside of like exclusively weight loss and celebrating that shit. And Cheryl will tell you, she'll say, hey, and I've lost a bit of weight. And she'll always like say, but I know you're not bothered about the weight. And I'm like, I'm not. I don't give a shit. And with some clients, I'm like, great, you've lost the weight before. How's this different? And they tell me, actually, I'm not bothered about food. There's no rules. I'm going out eating. I've got flexibility. I've got variety. I feel energized. I'm excited about eating again. All of this stuff versus like, queuing up at Slimming World, having starved yourself all day. Am I allowed to say Slimming World? We'll be honest. Other weight loss groups are available, but the same shite. Um, Getting yourself in the queue, starved yourselves all day, uh, dehydrated yourself, gotten on, lost your pound, went round the corner, binged on food. And it's like, oh, is that the life that you want? Is that the message you want to send to those around you? Now, God, how long have I been on this? This is a podcast. So if you do want to listen back, listen at the moment, it's called the Better You podcast, but it's just a bit too generic of a name, isn't it? So I'm going to probably call it something like now the Food Freedom Podcast. I'd imagine being taken. It's just that's quite. So I may call it like Diet Prison to Food Freedom podcast or something like that. Working with the ladies that I've been working with really has illustrated like what I'm about and what like I stand for in this space. And to those, I am hugely grateful. And I don't want to be a contributor in any shape or form to your diet struggles. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please, if you've enjoyed this, leave a comment in the thread if you're listening back. If you comment on Spotify, you can do that. YouTube, if you're watching, great. Send a message to my Facebook, Instagram, Ian Bickle. Ian at buildwithbickle.com is my email if you want to reach out. Diet scorecard, I can send you that. Buildwithbickle.com. Yeah, yeah. Comment. You'll find us. Just search Ian Bickle. Not many of us. But yeah, thank you so much for paying attention, and I will catch you next time. Come this afternoon for Helen.